Hello everyone, it's Mary. Welcome back to the channel where we have a fantastic video in store for you. Okay, so the first thing is it's kind of long. So what I would recommend is that you grab your favorite beverage, maybe a snack, and just hang out. One thing you will not have to do during this video is take notes if you don't want to. I will have everything compiled in an Excel spreadsheet for you so that you can have them by category. You can alter them however you want. You can add your own little notes to it. So I wanted to say that right up front. You do not have to take notes if you don't want to. You can just watch and check out all the amazing hacks. Now, why this video? So I wanted to put together this video because over the course of my time on YouTube, I have gotten so many amazing ideas from all of you. The comment section on some of my most watched videos is filled with information. So what I did was I went through and I pulled out as many as I possibly could of the hacks that you've all shared with me. But I did that and I finally sat down and recorded all of the hacks, all the tips, all the tricks that I had on that particular list. It's not all inclusive. There are tons more. In fact, I'm going to put out a call that you all put in the comments section what your favorite hack is that maybe I didn't mention, and maybe I'll come back and do another video. All right, so we are going to get started. A couple things about the video for organization purposes. If you are watching this video and you get distracted or get pulled away, don't forget you can always go back in your YouTube history and you can see it play there, or you can just search up on my channel and you'll see the video right away. This video is broken down into different categories of the hacks, tips, and tricks. It's not perfect, some of them overlap, but I did try to compartmentalize as much as possible. We'll go over design hacks, money savings, time savings, tool hacks, and organization. But don't forget, you can get that spreadsheet in the link below. You're going to find it, click it, grab your Excel sheet, have it for yourself, and add your own hacks and tips and tricks along the way. All right, let's get into this video, and we are going to be starting with design hacks. All right, let's go. Okay, so when I say design hacks, that means designs for our projects. So this first one, straight out the gate, we're going to be talking about how to use embossing powder with adhesive strips. So normally I use embossing powder with sticky ink, but anything sticky, really, you can make your embossing powder work. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lay down my strips of double-sided adhesive. And in the first example I showed you, I used different widths of adhesive, but this time I'm just going to keep it to the 1/4 inch. I'm going to go all the way down. Once I get that onto my cardstock, I'm just going to cut away the excess, of course, and then we're going to get ready for the embossing powder. The first example I did show you used multiple colors of embossing powder, which is part of this hack, in that you can remove the release paper from one of the pieces of adhesive at a time and cover that with embossing powder, which I think is so cool. So you can use multiples. But in this example, just as the demo, I'm going to show you that I'm using just regular one color. This is glitter red, and it's going to give me this really fun peppermint type style. So once I get all of my powder laid down onto my double-sided adhesive, I'm then going to heat set it with my heat tool. Pro tip along the way for this is an additional bonus, I think I'll just say bonus throughout the video, is to have your heat tool heat up at least 30 seconds. You're going to get less warping on your cardstock, and that's always a bonus. And there we have the finished look. So embossing powder with adhesive. All right, next up we have, first of all, this isn't the hack, but you can cut your stamps if you want. And I've cut the sentiment apart so that I don't have to deal with masking. But really the tip and hack here that you've all shared with me is this acetate for perfect placement. So I put down this piece of clear acetate on top of my panel, and I'm going to be able to see if it comes out straight before I make it permanent on my card panel, which is always helpful because you do all this work on a card and then your sentiment's wonky. So then I can see it lined up well. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to stamp it permanently. It's stuck like Chuck and we are loving it. Then I just take a little alcohol wipe and I'm going to wipe down my acetate to clean it. It's really easy, very simple, and I can reuse that acetate over and over for multiple things and you'll see it come back. Next up, this one, I know this one is from, a lot of them I don't know. I don't remember who told me, but this one is from Katja Kalinine. She has her own channel. You can check her out. She's awesome, always with the tips and tricks. But we're going to make it so that our die cut is actually shiny without having to use glaze or embossing or anything like that. Just take a piece of packaging tape and put it over your cardstock first. Then you're going to run this through your die cutting machine. I'm just using the mini one I have on my desk. This one's from We Are Memory Keepers. I get that out and I'm going to be able to have this really fun, clear die cut image. You can do it with images. You can do it with sentiments. I showed you here I have a bow and a sentiment, so I did both. But look, it just gives this really fun, shiny look. It's simple, no dry time. I love this, and I can't believe it took me this long to try this hack, so that's awesome. All right, the next hack here is not a demo, but it's something that someone shared with me about going to the Dollar Tree and picking up their cake bags where you can actually use embossing paste that you have in your stash and make it look like realistic icing on your projects. So I wanted to share that. I just pulled this from Amazon, but you can look around, get a cheap one, and try that out. That's pretty awesome. Okay, next up is the kind of doodling around a sentiment. So one of you suggested that I try fine line doodling around a sentiment on my cardstock, and I really had never heard of this or tried it, and so this was pretty fun. What I did was stamp out my image first. I took a fine liner pen and I am just outlining it. And it doesn't have to be perfect, especially when your sentiment is not like a perfect square or rectangle. So you can just have fun with it. And it turns out so whimsical. I love it. It gives a little pop on your card panel. So yeah, that one was awesome. Thumbs up. Love it. Okay, moving into the next one we have here is to use your sticky glue or double-sided adhesive for foiling. And I've done a video on this where I showed this in great detail, but I'm actually going to pull out a different type of product. This is just a wooden piece. It's a arrow. I decided not to use cardstock for this demo because I have videos where I show you can die cut and then use your double-sided adhesive for that. But I'm going to use this because you can put foil on lots of things. People put them on their furniture. They put them on just anything, really. So you can have fun with it. Now, this will come back. I'll come back to that. I put that extra piece of adhesive on a piece of release paper from like a label sheet. That is part of another hack that we're going to talk about, which I think is awesome. So now I'm just going to take my X-Acto tool and I'm going to kind of burnish that on there. I'm going to peel back the release paper for this. You'll see it. It's very simple. And then I'm going to take my foil. I do want to put a side note in because I really do get a lot of questions about the products I'm using in the videos. All that's going to be listed below. And if the list gets too big, I'll just give you a link and you can head to that link to check out all the supplies. If I forget a supply though, do let me know in the comments. So now I have my foil cut down and I'm just going to place that right on top, and you got to commit. Once you put it down, that's it. So if you want a perfect pattern, don't be messing around with it. Just put it down and then peel it back up. And here we have the end result is this awesome foiled arrow. I don't know what you're going to use an arrow for, but it was super fun to do. Moving right along, we are going to emboss our image so that we don't get smearing from the ink. Now there are inks that are compatible with alcohol ink markers versus inks for watercoloring, but let's say you only have one ink and you don't want to deal with the smudging. You can always heat set or heat emboss your image. So I've stamped out my images here, and now I'm going to pour clear embossing powder over it, and I'm going to heat set that. What that's going to do is going to lock in that black ink so there is no smudging possible. I do want to say that I've never had any issues using my markers with embossing, like embossing my images, but some people have said they've frayed their markers, so just be careful. I guess do that at your own risk. Now, I didn't heat set the one on the far right with embossing. That is just regular ink. I used VersaFine Nocturne ink, which is not good for alcohol markers. It's more for watercoloring. But I wanted to show you on the left, we have the ink under embossing powder on the right, we do not. And you could definitely in person, maybe a little on the video, but you can definitely see smearing of that ink. So I thought that was a great little tip to just heat set your items. And I do that a lot with watercoloring. Okay, this has to be one of the coolest things I never tried. And so when I was sitting down at my table and doing this, I was like, no, how does this? Couldn't wrap my brain around it. So what we're going to do is I have my Stampin' platform. I'm going to put down a piece of silicone. Now you can get those from your die cutting machines likely. And I'm going to stamp out this image of this gnome. Okay, so I stamp the image on the silicone first. Then I'm going to carefully place a piece of cardstock straight down onto that in the corner. Then I'm going to stamp it again. Now what we have is a perfectly mirrored image. So if I had a die for that, I could just run that through the die cutting machine and I would get a perfect mirror image of this gnome. And why would I want that? Well, maybe I'm doing a spinner card where you need both sides of the gnome to be exact. That's one of the tips or one of the things that we do, or you're doing an open layout card where you open it, you can see both sides. So now I had that after fussy cutting it. Wow, this one blew my mind. I don't even know. I know it's probably so simple, but 2 thumbs up. That one got 2 thumbs up. All right, let's talk about using our stencils more. So I have this bat stencil here, and one of you suggested that you can flip the stencil, a 180, and you get an alternate pattern. Because what I was doing in my video was I was shifting it. So I'm going to show you the difference here in just a second. So the shifting of the stencil would be where you kind of just move it a little, and you're going to get the exact same pattern over your panel. Or if you flip it like I just did, you're going to get a variety pattern. And also, I don't have to fill in every single bat when I flip that. I can move the stencil around and place the images where I want. This seems like a very simple concept, but it's one I definitely overlooked. So once I get all of those, you can see now I have this really organic looking kind of background. Great tip. I loved it. Thank you for that one. More about stencils is the same concept here, but this one I'm going to show you that it's not just for images. I have this pattern in the stencil pattern. So I'm going to put down some red ink and then I'm going to flip it. Now it looks kind of like a hot mess right now, but when I flip it, I'm going to add some green and then I'm going to get this really fun kind of pattern. So a bonus tip, when you're using stencils, don't feel like you have to go all the way to the edges of your stencil. Keep it in a focal point. You could do it in the lower corner, you could do it in the center like I did. And now I have this really fun kind of plaid looking background. We're going to use that background and actually make a card as we go with more tips. Bonus tip, that's how I store my stencils, in a binder. So it was life-changing for me. So I want to keep that in there. All right, another fun common tip that I got from all of you was dimension, dimension, dimension. So popping up your items, your images, your panels, dimension was really popular because it adds that extra oomph to a card that you don't normally see in store-bought cards. So definitely recommend adding dimension to your designs. This one, I'm just going to put some foam tape on the back of my little guy. Now here's a tip that you can just cut up right from your foam tape roll and cut first in one direction and then cut in the other. And now you have all these little tiny pieces of foam squares that you can use to put in, because you want to try to maximize the back of your images as much as possible with foam so that they don't bend. So there's another pro tip. Bonus. Okay, I get my little deer. He's going to get placed down right on the top of my card. You could see this card was super simple and easy to put together too. All right, but we're going to go into the next tip and reminder using the same card design. And that is, if you want to outline your card, maybe make sort of a panel behind it in some fun glitter cardstock, that's awesome, but don't waste it. Cut out the centers. You can do that by cutting images or just a plain square like I am, but don't let that bottom piece go to waste. All right, so I pulled out some of this rainbow glitter paper. I cut a square, or excuse me, a rectangle in the center of that. And now I still get my panel wrapping around the outside of my card, but I have all that extra glitter paper that I can use for something else. So now I'm just going to place this down on my card panel, and I'm going to go back to our tip about dimension, and I'm going to add some dimension to the card panel too. So it's not just for images. I actually like my whole card panel to pop up. Side note, this will probably have to be hand delivered or packaged differently, or maybe some extra postage just because it's a little bit thicker. Maybe not though. All right, let's move on to our next tip. This is going to be something I never tried, but I'd seen all over YouTube, and that is to use acetate to very methodically ink smush. So I have my piece of acetate that I used before, and I'm going to go down onto my cardstock here, and I'm going to place some of the ink I'm using and place it where I want to place it instead of just smashing my paper down into the ink, which I'm a huge fan of, by the way. But this is sort of, I could see it happening as it's going on. The acetate is clear. I can see where I'm placing stuff. And I thought this was a really, really fun way to add ink to your cardstock. It's much more controlled if you struggle in that area of just kind of wanting things to go a certain way. And it still has an element of spontaneity because you don't 100% know how this is going to turn out. So I'm really liking that end result. I thought that was such a fun, really fun hack. And I just used primary colors there, and look at all that fun that we got. The next thing I'm going to bring up on the screen is something I want to talk about, and I do a couple times, and that's these two-way glue pens. So these dry sticky. And so what's beneficial about those is one of you had suggested when you do the back of your card, you put handmade and then you sign your name with one of these pens, let it dry, and then foil it. So you foil your name. That is so awesome. And so you can get those from Amazon. This one's a thicker one, and we're going to talk about re-sticking your mat with that. So any of your sticky surfaces like your Cricut Silhouette, maybe you have different sticky mats for other crafting, you can re-stick with this Zig Glue two-way pen. So that's pretty cool. All right, let's go back to the kitchen and grab some items to bring to the craft room. So one of you suggested that I use some things that I already have in my kitchen, and that is aluminum foil. I crumpled up this aluminum foil and then I started stamping. Now it worked really well with the ink, but I bet it works even better with paint, but I didn't try it. So I have this really fun, look at how fun that background is. I don't even have a stamp like that. So that was really great. And I decided I'm in this Christmas kind of holiday theme mindset. So I pulled out some green. This color's Deck the Halls by Catherine Pooler. And I'm going to try the green. Now I have not mixed, not muddy, but a red and green background. And I just thought that was so much fun. All right, let's take a pause here for a moment and talk about our sponsor for our video today. Well, I'm not sure sponsor is totally the right word because I insisted that I share this information with you and she happily obliged. Let's talk about Maureen Paley, who I have been friends with since I was 14 years old. So if you do connect with her, she can give you some dirt on me. All right, let's talk about her. She is a financial coach, a life and career coach, and she's so passionate about helping clients feel less money stress and more money confidence. And I have a personal testimony. Ever since I've been following her in this realm, in her financial management coaching, I have seen a massive increase in my awareness of where my money's going, but also money savings. And you know, as I am on this channel, I am huge into saving the money where we can. And because Maureen is a certified professional coach and accredited financial counselor, she's got all the goods. So she has launched her Know Where the Money is Going mini course, and I think it's amazing. I cannot advocate enough for this. She also gave our community here a coupon for the first 50 who sign up. Use coupon code LiveWealth25. All that will be below in the description box. You can find the link for $25 off if you're one of the first 50. So that's incredible. Thank you so much, Maureen, for that. I also need to share that Maureen's Instagram is dropping knowledge every single day. I would definitely recommend you follow her over there. She's constantly giving out free resources to help us get just stress-free in our finances. So check out the Instagram link below as well. I know you will love her as much as I do. Okay, let's get back into our crafting hacks. So a lot of you have probably heard of using press and seal from the kitchen into the craft room. So I'm going to show you just a couple ways that I use it. This first way is to get perfect placement without having to constantly replace down stuff. Let's say I want the Mary to kind of be over the bow, but the bow under the Christmas. That can get, I don't know, just kind of cumbersome. So what you do is you place a piece of press and seal over that, glue it up, place it back down onto your cardstock. I'm faking this, by the way, because I wasn't doing it at that moment. But that is a way to easily put your stuff down. I also use it as a way to preserve some of my pastes. So I have this over my Cloud Whip right here and other embossing pastes. I use it for that as well. All right, so another kitchen item that I wanted to recommend is any sort of spatula that you would use for baking. The Dollar Tree has these. I also use silicone-ended tongs for holding cardstock while I am doing heat embossing. This way my fingers are not getting burned, and it's just a great tip because the silicone cleans off really nicely from the embossing. Let's talk about craft mats in our craft room. So we have an old craft mat here that maybe we don't want to use for our Cricut or Silhouette anymore. You can cut it down to the sizes of your Misty in this case, or Stampin' Platform. I'm going to just talk about the Misty for this one. And I cut it down. You can cut down that mat and then re-stick it like I talked about previously with the two-way glue pen. So now you have a refreshed mat that is sized perfectly for what you wanted, or you can just keep it big and use it for stenciling after you re-stick it. So that's another cheaper alternative. Okay, some additional money-saving tips that you've shared with me are to head to estate sales to see what they have for crafting, thrift stores as well, and you could find some really hidden gems. In fact, I'm about to drop off a mini die cutting machine there because I don't use it. Amazon Warehouse has opportunities for saving lots of money on cardstock and things like that. And then also reuse your junk mail. Maybe you can use it for shims or cutting down for layering, things like that. All right, the next money-saving alternative tip I have is an oldie but a greatie. And so I had to share it with you again, and that is to use Posterboard instead of Yupo paper for alcohol inks. So Yupo paper is synthetic, it's more like plastic. And Posterboard is like cardstock, but it has a sort of a sheen or a slick side to it. Posterboard is the kind of stuff you can either get from the Dollar Tree or really any office supply place has Posterboard. And so you can pick that up and cut it down to size or whatnot. Here I'm just showing you how it moves, how the alcohol inks move on Posterboard. And it's such a fun and cost-effective way to practice and have fun without worrying about wasting your Yupo paper. Next alternative I wanted to talk about was this scrubber right here. I got this, it's on a wooden block and I love it. I use it for cleaning off my stamps. It's handheld, so I can do it from cleaning off stamps that are still affixed to my platforms when I'm stamping on my Misty, or I can use it when I have like this, when I'm on a free block. I love it. I think it's great. I also wanted to share an alternative to this as well, but here's a bonus. Stamp off your image a couple times before you clean it. It'll keep your cleaning surface or your scrubber a little bit cleaner for longer. So that's just a bonus tip. But this right here is a paint edger that you get from any store that would sell like home stuff, like, I don't know, Lowe's, Home Depot, anything for painting. And look they're exactly the same. It's the exact same material. And so the paint edger, you can buy replacements, which are cheaper than buying a full block scrubber. So I just wanted to share that tip with you because that has been hugely helpful, and it's a bigger surface too. So if you have a big background stamp, you can use it to clean. And so yeah, so that's an alternative product I wanted to make sure that I shared with you. Okay, our next money savings hack and tip is to make your own thin strips of foam tape. I love this hack. This one came to us from Cindy Ellen, another one I remembered who told me. And you take some, let's say, release paper from maybe a label sheet like I have here, and you cut up the foam that you do have. Let's say you have this 2-inch foam. That's all you buy it in, okay? I'm going to place down a couple of these pieces. Now, this isn't just foam. This is making strips of any double-sided adhesive. If you have the really thick double-sided adhesive like this, and you want smaller strips for a reason, this is a great tip. This, like I'm showing you right there, it comes off very easily. It's release paper, so it's not gonna stick to our adhesive like regular cardstock. I'm going to just cut down with my scissors straight down to get these strips. And now they're all not sticky because they both have release paper on both sides, and they're ready to use. So that's for the adhesive. And then if I want to do it with strips of foam, I can just pull out a paper trimmer and slice those right up, and then I have it. And this is a bit more cost effective than buying separate strips of foam. All right, let's move into time savings ideas. First one up is to do your multi-layers of die cutting by first adhering cardstock together. So if I want 4 layers of cardstock for something, put 2 of them together. You are literally saving half the time. Instead of die cutting what you need to 4 times, you can do it 2 times. And so I'm just running through this thanks background die. So this, when I say background, it's sort of the bubble piece of the thanks. It's not the intricate thanks. So I'm going to run that through my die cutting machine twice to get 4 layers of this cardstock. I think this is awesome. I've never done this before, but this is just really brilliant. It's quick, it's easy, and now I put those 2 together, and now I have my die cut ready to go. So double up your cardstock, folks, and save yourself some time. The next thing that I want to talk about is when you are mass producing cards. So the assembly line process is the time-saving hack of the century when it comes to mass producing. Don't make a full 1 card and then make a full 1 card and then so on and so forth. If you're making multiples of similar things, do them all at once as far as the category of what you're doing goes. So right now, I'm going to be doing all of my ink blending on my backgrounds here. I'm making a bunch of military thank you cards. They're not all identical. I made about 5 or 6 of the same design, but the backgrounds are all the same. So I'm going to go through and make 20 backgrounds of just ink smushing some distress oxide ink on my craft sheet, then onto my watercolor cardstock, and I'm going to do that over and over again. It's very therapeutic for me. Once I get all of those done, I am ready to move on to the next step. That's the whole point of the time savings idea when it comes to mass producing. Move from one piece to the next. So the next step for me would be to stamp my 5 cards with this image right here. And I'm going to do that 5 times. Then I'm going to move on to stamping the next image. And this one is a thank you, right? So that is the idea here. It makes it go by so much faster when you're trying to do multiples. All right, once I get all of my stamping done, then I'm going to do the final touches for each of my items, each of my cards. So my final touch here is to go in with some VersaFine Fallen Leaf ink and put it around the back or the edges. It makes it look like a shadow look. So final touches here, going to do that with every single one of mine. And then I'm going to show you real quick. This is basically all the different designs. Now I have 5 each of these designs, and I was able to mass produce them very quickly. I mean, you know, not too quick. To take some time, but it turned out much faster than if I had done it individually. Next time saver is, have you ever die cut an intricate die and the stuff just sticks into the die? Well, this tip right here is to run your die through your die cutting machine with some dryer sheets. Now I have about 3 or 4 laid out there, and it's going to place sort of this wax coating on the inside of your die, which is going to have your stuff release so much faster. So I'm going to show you what that looks like after you do it. I have this very intricate die here with a lot of petals, and it's just a lot of pieces. So if I don't have that sort of wax coating on there, it can kind of all stick, and then I have to be poking stuff out. Well, that's not the case once you do that little tip. Here's another bonus tip here is when you are die cutting intricate dies to use a shim. Now a shim is any extra layer between the die and the plates. So I'm going to place this cardstock right down there. You saw me do that. Then the plate, and now I have this really easily releasable die cut. That shim is the business because this is watercolor cardstock and an intricate die. And look at how fast that is popping right out of there. So I just wanted to make sure I kept that in there so you could see shims are amazing. It gives that extra layer of pressure and your stuff will pop right out. All right, next time saver that you shared with me was to double stamp your images. So do it twice. If you have a new stamp set, pull out all the images and the sentiments, get that all stamped out at one time, and then you can keep one for your project and put one with your storage in the stamp. I thought that was great. I had never really done that before, and it does save time because when I pull out that stamp set again, I will already have stuff ready to go for it. So I think that was really great. Also, a pro tip is to add what kind of cardstock you're using and ink. This way, if you pull it out at a later date, you'll know what kind of coloring medium would work best. So here I'm just showing you how I'm cleaning off my stamps right from my Misty using my paint edger. Just in case you were curious how that worked. All right, so I get that all done. I love that time saver. And now I have all my stuff kind of stacked away, one to use, one ready to put aside. All right, let's move on to the next piece of this, which is very similar in that do it with sentiments as well. I like to heat emboss my sentiments on black cardstock with white embossing powder. So what you do here, this is a time saver, instead of pulling off all those words, you put some adhesive right on the back. Boom, it sticks to your Misty. You ink it up, you stamp it, you emboss it, you leave it, whatever you do, and then you can pull it off. Now to get rid of that stick, you just take out your anti-static powder tool and just powder it up, and it is good to go. It's not going to give you any problems sticking to your things. It's good, and I love this tip. This has saved me so much time when it comes to sentiments because I always love to heat emboss my sentiments. All right, we are shifting to tool hacks. So this just means using your tools in your craft supplies a little bit differently. So this one is, I'm going to start with fun foam ideas. This is stuff I picked up in bulk on Amazon, but you can get them from any craft store. Just make sure it's not too thin. Okay, so I have my fun foam here, and the first thing is I'm going to make my own foam adhesive, and I do that by using my monster roll of double-sided adhesive, and then I just place that onto my fun foam, and I do that on both sides. This way it keeps it ready to go for, actually this one I only did on one side, and I'll show you why. So I'm going to cut them down into panels ready to go. And so if I use A2 size cards mostly, then I'm going to cut them down about 1/4 inch each way. So it'll be 4 inches by 5 1/4. That way it'll fit the back of a panel nicely. Okay, when you do this and it runs through the mail, it keeps the card panel from bending if you just had foam strips, maybe with some space. So I do like the panel. So I'm going to place that down, and then another additional thing that you've all shared with me as one of your hacks is that you use liquid adhesive on foam so that it gives you wiggle room when you're placing it down. So I could have done this on both sides, but I just wanted to show you both hacks in one. So I place that down, I'm going to put something heavy on it, and then we're going to come back to that and check it out later. All right, so the next thing is I'm going to run my fun foam through my die cutting machine here, and I'm going to make my own stamp. So I'm using that same Thanks die. I'm going to take 2 pieces of this, and it actually turns out to be 2 foam pieces. It might be 3 actually, because yeah, it's 3 that I'm using for this stamp, but you don't need 3. You could probably get away with just one piece of the foam. I did 3 though because I had made a mistake on this piece of it. I shouldn't have had double-sided adhesive on that top. You want no adhesive on the top, right? Because I'm going to put sticky glue. Let me explain. So here's my quote-unquote stamp that I'm making. And on the top of this, I'm going to put some glue that dries tacky. So this one is the scrapbook.com Smart Glue. There's others out there. We talked about them previously. But I'm going to let that dry off to the side, okay? Also, another tip you shared with me was that if you get tacky glue on your surface of your design. Then let that, when it dries, you can come back and remove it easily. So I'm going to show you. First up, does that liquid glue on foam work? Yes, it does. Now that liquid glue I used, I believe, was either the Barely Art or the Artiste. Yes, works great. Second, remove sticky glue from your projects. Just rub it off with your finger. I did this. I'm sure you have to be careful, especially if you're talking about it's on a watercolor surface or something like that. But I'm just showing you for demo purposes. It comes right off and there's no stick left on it. So that was cool. And then this piece right here, it's dried tacky. So what I'm going to do is put my acrylic block down, pick it up, and it sticks. And it's removable, and it's not going to leave adhesive marks on my block. So I'm going to go through and show you now into the actual tip of using the fun foam. I'm going to use it as a stamp. So this is cool. This is not the best choice to demo with because you can do this with multiple things. But let's say you have like a die that's a leaf from fall. You can die cut that out of your fun foam, make it into stamps for your background. And so I wanted to show you, it works. You can see what I'm doing here. And I'm just having fun right now. So I'm using multiple colors just to show you what that looks like. You can put then your intricate, for this example, the intricate thanks in there. So sky's the limit. Use your fun foam to stamp. Super fun. All right, next tool hack is when you're doing vinyl cuts and you can't quite see where to weed, take some powder and just put the powder over the die cut, the vinyl, and it'll kind of pop up the image that you need to weed out. I thought this was brilliant. I had never done this before, and I used to drive the struggle bus when it came to weeding out my vinyl stuff. So thank you to whomever suggested that I try this. I appreciate you. I give this one a definite 2 thumbs up. You all gave me some great tips on alternative anti-static powder tools. One was to use one of those makeup tins, and when the powder's gone, just use the little puff in there with some cornstarch or baby powder. That works. Also, someone said to fill up an old pantyhose piece and use that as well. It works great and it is going to save you some money. All right, and then also another person shared to use cling-free all over you so that you don't get glitter sticking to you, which I have not tried that, but that was very interesting, so I wanted to share it. Let's talk about a tool that you can use for multiple things. So I love perfect placement. These 90-degree angles on the Misty, the Score Buddy, and also this T-square ruler are going to help you get perfect placement from your panel and your card base. So you're going to put your base into that 90-degree angle. I'm going to actually show you the one with the T-square ruler, but you can use this on your Misty, you can use it on your Score Buddy. Right here I have my T-square ruler, and you're going to place it right in the corner there and then place down your panel on top of it. I love that. I think that's great, and that's 3 tools you probably already have in your stash to use for that. Tool hack is going to be releasing the foam strip backing so that you can maneuver your foam in any shape that you like. So right here I have this shaker card I'm making with this curved window at the top. I'm going to remove both sides of the paper, release paper, and I'm going to be able to shift my foam around. Now, the thinner the foam strip, the easier it is going to be to move it. But I do find that even as thick as this is, it's still workable. So I just wanted to share that piece with you. I've been doing that for a while, and a lot of you have agreed this is a really great hack for your tools. Just makes it so much easier to finish off that shaker card. So as I'm going through and finishing this shaker card here, I thought I would add a couple more tips. So if you cut your foam too short, don't worry. You can slice up super thin pieces and shove them right inside there. You don't want any space when you're making shaker cards, or else your shaker bits are everywhere. Another tip is before I put the acetate down on my sheet, I went in and I outlined that inside of the window. Then before I put down the shaker and adhere it, I erased some of those marks so it's not a straight window pencil line in there. Then I fill up my shaker with my shaker bits, knowing exactly where to put them because I have that outline of the window. And it makes it very simple when I'm going to place down the top panel piece on it, because now I know I'm going to have to keep it in there or else my shaker bits are going to stick to the foam. So I release all of my foam there, get my head in the way, and then I'm going to be able to place it down perfectly. I trim off the back of this because that does not matter if it's not straight. You can always trim away the white piece and your shaker panel is good to go. Oh, do we have some fun coming up with contact paper. Contact paper you can find at the Dollar Tree. You can find it pretty much anywhere, and it is fantastic for crafting. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make my own sticky mat. I want the size of the Mini Misty mat inside, so I'm just using that as a gauge, and I'm going to cut up some contact paper for that. Now, when I get this cut off, I'm then going to take a piece of cardstock because that's what I'm going to wrap my contact paper around. But the tricky thing about this is I'm wrapping the contact paper around it opposite. So I want the sticky side to be outward. And that is because obviously I'm making a sticky mat. So the way that I'm going to do this, I'm sure there is a much better engineered way to do this, but I just want this contact paper to stick to my cardstock. So I'm going to be using some packaging tape. I place down that first piece, put a little piece of packaging tape on it to hold it in place. Then I do the same with the other side, and I'm going to then cut the corners off, if you will, so that I can fold over my contact. Regardless, it's not pretty on the back side of it, but who cares? I get this down and it really sticks in place. Okay, so you can see here I'm doing another piece, packaging tape. So far, this is twice that it's been recognized for crafting, so I found a good use for it. All right, so I'm just finishing this up. I'm folding this over again, just using that tape to hold it down. All right, so this can now be used for a couple things. You can place this into your Misty, and you can use it as a sticky mat if you'd like. You can also, what I tend to pull it out for the most is small dies or die cut images or things that I need to color up that I don't want to get my fingers in the way. I place them on this quote sticky mat. And this way they are good to go. And once I place them down, they're not going to move around. They're not going to shift. I'm going to be able to color them again without getting my fingers in the way. So you can see my left hand is off to the side. Otherwise, I'd have to hold this and get either ink all over my fingers or just, I don't know, it's just not as convenient. So I love the fact that I can just hold it down. You can also double up tape to do this, not packaging tape, but like a low tack tape. You can double that up and that will help as well. Our next contact paper usage is going to be to make our own stencils. A few of you actually recommended this to me, and I'd never done it before, so I thought this would be a lot of fun. Now, some things I learned along the way for this. Right now, you can see I'm making a 6x6 stencil, so I'm just going to place that right into the pocket here of my contact paper, because this, I want the contact paper obviously to stick to it. I don't want sticky stuff showing this time. Now I want the smooth surface of the contact paper. The reason this is useful for stencils is because you can reuse whatever you're making, whatever stencil you make. It's not cardstock, so you can wipe it off and you can use it for other things too. This can be its own craft mat, by the way. So I get that cut up, and what I'm going to do, one thing I learned on this, you want to make sure that you don't put contact paper on both sides, just one side of your cardstock. Otherwise, it's not going to cut through as easily, or if at all. So I get that, and I took some wave dies I had in my stash and made the corners of the stencil just to get max usage from the wave dies. So now I can do multiple stencils on this. This was just a prototype, but you can really get outside the box with this one. This would be a lot of fun to just make your own stencils with the stuff that you have. So I'm going to go through and just kind of show you what this looks like. I did some circles for my stencil, and I also made the waves that I'm showing you here. I did it in 2 different wave dyes so that you can get a little bit of a different look. And then I'm just like kind of rubbing it with some blue ink just to kind of give that. Okay, so that's the one side that I did. The other side, because I just used the same cardstock, I just turned it over, and we're going to have some fun with the circles. But before we do, look how easy this is to clean off. I'm actually going to use it to pick up ink for another background, because if you've been hanging out with me for any amount of time, you know that I do this because I don't like to waste ink. So then I do that and I can clean it right up and I can reuse this stencil over and over again. Thank you for all of you that shared this tip with me. I'm going to be doing a lot of this in the future. So let's have some fun since we're here with the stencils that I made with the circles. I kept this in here because if you love crafting, this is just fun. And I really love the way it looked on the end. So the thing about the making your own stencils is you don't have to cover up the entire panel. Keep that in mind. I didn't. I just move around my stencil. Be careful when you do it so you don't get overage over onto your card panel. But generally speaking, if you're careful with it and you know you're watching and you space it out enough, you do not have to cover your whole stencil with the dies that you want. Right now, you could never tell. This was just 3 circles because I'm going through and I'm having a blast. And I use smaller finger dauber type of brushes as well as big ones, but the smaller ones are good so that I don't get that overlap problem, right? So if you use too big of a brush, then you're probably going to run right into your card panel. So I'm just going to finish this off. That extra little blue on it just adds so much fun and dimension. That has nothing to do with hacks. I just wanted to share that with you because I really love the way this one came out. Also, it was approved by my 14-year-old daughter. She loved it too. So there you go. Make your own stencils. Get your stuff out, have some fun, grab some contact paper. Loving that contact paper. It's phenomenal. All right, and then we're going to clean that off. I'm just going to show you that once again, how easy that is to clean. And look, it could be its own mat. You can bubble up all your inks. You can ink smush. So definite, amazing idea. Thank you. Let's move into our next one, and that's going to be to have your crafting on the go. For these tips for our tool is going to be this clipboard. So have a clipboard handy. You can pick those up for $1.25. And this one is a dry erase board magnet sheet that I have there to the right. We'll come back to that in a second. But someone had mentioned that they keep their coloring on a clipboard, so they could just pick it up and go as they like. I love that idea. I think that's great. I also have used clipboards for putting craft sheets on it. You can actually affix a craft sheet permanently to it and just have that. You can pick it up and go. It's great because you can move it off your surface. If, let's say, you're working on a different type of surface like I am, I'm working on my self-healing mat, the black one. So if I just want to ink smush and then move that out of the way, keep it on a clipboard, you can do that. So I think that's great. And then here I'm just showing you for no special reason except for that I liked how this came out. This is a craft mat. This is a craft sheet right here. The real tip is that I'm using when I use the dry erase board piece for a craft mat, because that I did not even think to do, but really any non-porous surface is going to probably do well when it comes to ink smushing. So I am going to just demonstrate real quick how that works. This is a dry erase marker sheet. So these are the ones that I have affixed to the refrigerator, and they're magnetic. So I just put them up there and I keep little notes on there. But anyway, side note, that works as well. All right, let's talk about organization next. So this first one came to me, and I love this idea about double labeling your stuff. So a pet peeve of some of us is when the actual stamp set on the acetate doesn't have the name of the stamp set. So craft companies, if you're watching, make sure you put the name on the stamp set. When it doesn't have it, you can label it. And one of my viewers had mentioned she labels twice. She just prints out 2 labels, one for the stamp set, one for the packaging. This way she never loses them. Everything is always kept where she knows where to put it. So I love that idea. So I decided to do that as well. And if you're curious about my label maker, that's a Nelco. I did a separate video where I showed it, but you can check out the links below if you wanted to see it up close. I love it. I think it's super easy to use. And there we go. So now we have 2 labels. All right, so another pet peeve, maybe, of some people is when you have 2 pieces of acetate for your stamps. I know I prefer the acetate to be one sheet where it kind of hinges on itself. So here comes our trusty old packaging tape back out again, and we are going to make our own hinge in the easiest possible way. I'm going to place packaging tape that way, then I'm going to fold it over and place it on that side, and then I'm going to trim it off And now, folks, we have a hinge for our stamp set. Hello. I don't know why I haven't been doing this for the last 10 years, but I don't like to have my acetate separate because I always lose it. So there you go. I have just a few more ideas for organizational things that you can do. The first one is die cutting. This is both organizing them into category based on little envelopes, or if you have no mojo, just go sit and die cut a bunch of stuff. You're gonna love it, and you're gonna have it for use when you're ready to sit down and craft. Another thing is to display your stencils. If you like things out and about, you can put them on rings, sort of like those shower rings, and have them hung near you so you can see and thumb through quickly. And then another one is to swatch out your inks. That's always a great tip that I've used and I've heard for knowing what you have already in your inventory and to grab it easily. And the last thing I have for you is to categorize all of the amazing videos you're watching. You can create your own playlist. You go to this 3 dots here and select save. Then you can create your playlist and name it anything you like, and also set it to either private or public so other people can see your playlists or just you. Once you do that, you can head over to your main page and you'll find a button that says library. And that is where you will find all of your playlists. All right, it's time to wrap this up. That concludes our video on all of these amazing hacks, tips, and tricks. All right, in the comments down below, I want to know, what was your favorite one? What was the one you had no idea about and it was just like, what? And then also, if you have any additional ones that you want to share, I would love to read them. I might not be able to respond to everybody's comments, but I absolutely will read them and I will take note if we want to do another video on this topic. Don't forget to grab your Excel sheet listing all of the hacks that I showed in the video. You can find that in the link below as well. Click on that, grab it, start documenting your own tips and tricks. Don't forget to check out Maureen Paley's Know Where the Money is Going mini course. All the information for that will be linked below, as well as the coupon code. All right, I will see you all in the comments down below and in the next video. Bye-bye. If you liked this video, you are going to love the ones on the screen. So check out these playlists. I'll see you over there.